Hello everyone and welcome to another real estate video. This is Javier Vidana, the real estate YouTube guy here in Phoenix, Arizona, helping you accomplish your home goals. The last few weeks we've been talking a lot about financing, the type of loans are out there, the interest, how all that fits in the big picture. And naturally people are starting to ask the questions of when it comes to selling. A lot of times realtors, including myself, always love to talk about equity and selling your house. Yet we're throwing these terms around, but we never stop and start explaining the basics. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the very basic concept of how does selling a house work when you have a loan. Now, we all know what it means to sell a house, right? You find a buyer, you agree to a price, that money it gets put to your account, right? Well, what happens when there's a loan or a mortgage in place? Or what happens when there's like all that interest that you're supposed to pay for the next 20-25 years? How does it work? What gets paid off? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about. And first and foremost, I'm sorry about the haircut. It's Arizona is one of the worst spots for COVID right now. And I'm just, playing it safe and not getting a haircut. So you guys are gonna have to deal with the werewolf Javier. All right, now let's get to it. I just drank some Dr. Pepper and it went down the wrong hole. Dr. Pepper, why are you doing this to me? When you own a house, it is your house. No one can take it from you. Well, not necessarily. It's also kind of the bank's house. So they're giving you the house and it's yours. However, it's like you own something, but really behind you, there's like a big guy, just like, hey, this is actually my house. Or a big girl, whatever floats your boat. They're giving you the illusion that it's their house. But if you ever stop making that payment, come knocking on the door, they're gonna foreclose it and take that house back. So how this works is you can decide to sell whenever you want. Literally after buying the house, you can sell your house. However, there is very strict laws regarding this. So please talk to your accountant to verify it. But my general knowledge of this is if this is your sole house and you've occupied it fully for at least 2 years, you can sell it and it'll be tax-free. Now, once again, please make sure to verify with your accountant. If you just sell this prior to 2 years or you have other as an investment or anything like that, well, you can be liable to pay taxes on any profits you make. So just a quick warning, people always ask, when can I sell my house? When can I do all this? When can I refinance? That's the only thing you really need to think about. So instead of asking your realtor that, ask your accountant or your CMA. It is CMA. What am I talking about? CPA. Ask your CPA. Geez Louise. So when you decide to sell your house, the way it works is, well, let's just use an example. So let's say you bought a house for $200,000. It's been already more than 2 years. You check the values of the area, or maybe you talk to one of your local realtors. You find out it's worth about $300,000. So in essence, you have about $100,000 worth of equity. When we talk about equity, it's the money that you've gained in value since your initial deposit. Now, two things have changed since you bought the house. Your equity has gone up, meaning the value or the perceived value at this point has gone up about $100K, but your loan amount has also gone down. So you bought this house for $200,000. Say you put 3.5% down. Well, your loan amount was closer to about 185 or 190, right? Well, as you've lived in the house, let's give it 5 or 10 years, you probably owe 160 or 170 on it. Let's say 150 to make it an easy number, because sometimes math doesn't work well with me. So your actual true equity that you have in this house is not 100,000, it's closer to $150,000, which is pretty sweet. And that's money that you wouldn't have had if you were renting an apartment somewhere, right? So big pat in the back. But like many of you guys were asking me, what happens, right? You signed a mortgage or agreement for 30 years. There's a lot of interest that the lender was going to collect from you for the following 20-25 years. What happens to that amount? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to verify that your loan does not have a prepayment penalty. Now, I will say in the 8 years I've been doing this post financial crisis, because I wasn't around for that, I have never seen a loan that doesn't have a prepayment penalty. So odds are you probably don't have one, but you want to 100% verify it and make sure that there's no prepayment penalty. Now, if you verify this, then all you really have to worry about is going to be the remaining balance of the loan. Whatever amount you have left of interest, that's not money that the lender was going to collect from you, right? Using a quick amortization schedule, I can see here by 10 years, you'll owe about 150, 149, which is, hey, look at that. I guessed that right on the spot. But all in all, for 30 years, you were supposed to pay $143,000. Now, it is incorrect for you to think that money still needs to be collected if you decide to sell the house. Once you decide to sell the house, whatever interest the bank has collected from you, that's a profit. right? They're not going to continue to make the rest of the interest, because the interest only applies to something that is alive. And if your mortgage dies, meaning you sell your house, then there's no need to collect interest on every other payment. The way interest is calculated in your monthly payment is they get the loan balance, they multiply that with your interest rate, and whatever that number is, they divide it by 12, and that's the number that they collect of interest per month. Now, if this number is actually now 0, well then the whole formula falls apart. Whatever the balance is when you decide to sell a house, that's all you have to worry about. So if you've lived in this house more than 2 years and you talk to your CPA or CMA or whatever the heck they're called, and they say, yep, you're gonna collect this zero taxes on this. So you're probably thinking $150K in the bank, all mine, yeah, baby. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that $300,000 is just your perceived value of your house. You're truly not gonna know what the value of your house is until you actually test the market out and you put it on the market. So I don't want you to get too attached to the number that you think it's perceived, even if you have a realtor approve it, or this is just your gut reaction, because even though there's houses that sold for $280 in your block, this house is special because your baby was born in this walls, or your baby learned how to walk in these. You want to be realistic here, right? The number that you're assigning to it initially is not going to be the one set in stone. So if you decide to lower the price because it doesn't sell, or because you took a less offer, you didn't lose money. People always go, oh, I took an offer at $290, I lost $10,000. You never had $300,000 to believe with, right? So whatever value you perceive you think it's worth, that's basically what you're going to test the market on. Now, whatever offer you end up getting, either because the market agrees with you and there's enough demand to meet that value, it might even sell for more. Now, let's say it sells for $300,000. Well, a lot of times you have to consider a few closing costs. Yes, you do have some costs you have to pay. First and foremost, the biggest one is going to be your realtor commissions. Now, I always tell my clients that when you're hiring me to buy your house, you don't have to pay my commission. I say usually I get paid through the seller or the listing agent. Well, this is why. When someone decides to sell their house, they agree to pay a percentage to the agent helping them, and they agree to pay a percentage to the agent helping the buyer. Now, I'm not going to give you the exact number because I can actually get in trouble for standardizing, if that's a word, the commission. One thing I do want to note though is that as you're researching, you are going to find some flat fee people that charge very little amount, and of course you'll find others that charge a little more. You really want to hire someone that you're going to trust is going to do a good job. And it goes beyond just marketing. Make sure to take the right photographer to take the photos, or you want to hire someone that's going to truly sell that house like it's their house. They're gonna respect everyone that calls on that sign, be respectful of any agents or people making offers on the table, and just really represent you and your best interest for the entire transaction. So once you've agreed whatever you're gonna pay your listing agent, you have to figure out what you're gonna pay your buyer's agent. Now, really take your listing agent's advice here, right? Once you figured out what you're gonna pay your listing agent and what you're gonna pay for the buyer agent that brings in the deal, that's gonna be one fee that you have to worry about. The other fee, at least here in Arizona, is there's usually 1% of title fees. Now, you want to verify if your state's different. In my state, I believe the normal is the seller pays the title insurance for the buyer, and the seller and buyer split the title fees 50-50. You want to verify with your agent in your state what the fees are going to be for the title fees. Now, there's a lot of little ones too that are part of title. Like, for example, if you haven't paid your taxes yet, you're going to have to pay the remainder or what's left. Or maybe you'll get a refund back because you already paid your 6 months of taxes and you've lived in there for 3 months. Or there's also HOA dues that might be due soon, and all kinds of little fees like that usually get handled through all that mishmash of title fees. Normally in Arizona, it's 1 and 2% of extra title fees, but of course, verify with your realtor if you're not in Arizona. And of course, really the last fee you have to worry about is the buyer. Now, a lot of people love to ask the seller to pay their closing costs when they're buying a house. When it comes time to selling, they get stingy. Well, this is a decision you have to make. If your market is paying a lot of closing costs towards buyers, well, yeah, it's your decision. Do you want to take the buyer's offer, or do you want to find someone that's not going to pay closing costs? If you're in a super seller's market like we are now, maybe you have the leverage and you're going to find someone that not only is going to pay their own closing costs, but they're going to pay above value. So you really want to play it by the market and see, if it's worth your time and whatnot and all that good stuff. So now there might be other fees here that I'm not remembering at the moment. So please leave a comment below if your state has something different. I know there's always different rules in different states, so I look forward to reading those. Now, So let's say you sell your house for $300,000. You have a $150,000 balance on it, and you have all these fees. Well, first thing that happens is $300,000 gets sent to the title company. They pay your mortgage, the remainder balance right away. One thing that you'll be surprised about is if your loan balance is, let's say, 150, you might be paying 151 or 152 or even 153. If you remember the first month, you don't pay. Remember when you move into a house, you don't pay your first payment for that first or second month. Well, whatever interest accrued in those months or maybe in other months, you're gonna pay that then and there. So you might see your amount go up slightly. So always when I calculate the net, so yeah, whenever I do a net, I always add like $1,000 or $2,000 on top of it just to make sure. I always like to overestimate. So whatever, but in this case, we're just gonna go with an easy number. So the first thing they do is they'll pay off that mortgage entirely. So that leaves $150,000 on the table. Now, what happens at this point is then whatever fees or commissions you agreed to pay or the buyer's closing costs, that gets taken from that. One thing that you'll also find out is you have an escrow account where you're basically been collecting money for the insurance or for the title, the taxes and all that. If there's anything left over or remainder balance there, that might be added towards the end towards your title to make this amount go higher. But one thing that's happened with me personally is I actually get checks in the mail like a week or two after closing from the remaining balance of the insurance. So make sure that you call your utilities, make sure you call your insurance companies too, because my dumb butt was paying insurance on the house I sold for like 4 months and it really was terrible. But anyways, just make sure you do that. So that's how it works to sell a house when you still have a mortgage. Hopefully you understand now that it's not very complicated. It's really simple. So you shouldn't let it affect you. Now, one thing that people always feel is that when they buy a house or they have a mortgage, they're trapped for 30 years. On the contrary, if you're in a position where you're building some equity, normally after 3 to 5 years, you might find yourself in a position where you're ready to sell, and not only that, but get some money out. This is why I personally love owning my home, because I can't control the market around me, but as long as I'm in a house where I can afford the payment that it would cost about the same to rent anyways, I can roll the dice and trust the market will be doing great. And let's say I live in a house for 5-6 years. Well, if I would have rented for 5-6 years, I would only maybe get my deposit back if I took care of the place. But if I lived in a house, I have the potential to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only get my money back that I paid for the monthly, but on top of that, make much more. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions whatsoever, please leave a comment below. I also have all my social media links in the description. I actually now have a Discord server for anyone who wants to chat with me in Discord. I have Instagram, Twitter. If you want to DM me there, I try to do video messages back to you guys. I'm also live streaming on Twitch and YouTube wise. If you guys are Twitch followers, so go ahead and follow me there. I'm not playing any games yet, just kind of doing the live Q&As for now. Eventually, once the Twitch grows a little more, I might play some games. Other than that, guys, if you're in Phoenix, Arizona area and you would love to work with me, I would love to work with you. My contact information can be found in the description. Last but not least, we got the Homegirl Helper available in my website. Feel free to check it out if you want an interactive workbook. And of course, thank you to our sponsors, Dr. Squatch and McKissick Education. Use code Javier for 10% off for Dr. Squatch. If you watched it and you're still watching even after that, tell me your favorite soda, so that way I know you watched it at the very end. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.